Hello, welcome to We Know Nothing, where we know absolutely nothing, and welcome to Book Club. Now, lately we've been doing Sophie's World, which has been a fun time. However, we are going to switch gears a little bit and get into something called the Kybalion. Now, the Kybalion is very, very deep, and it has so much information and knowledge. I've actually already read about half of it so far, but I feel like this is the kind of book that you just need to read over and over again for it to really sink in and for you to truly understand what it's even saying. So kind of the subtitle is A Study of the Hermetic Philosophy of Ancient Egypt and Greece, written by the three initiates, published in 1908. So it's been around for a little while. This knowledge has been gathered over hundreds of years because it is from ancient Greece and Egypt. But I'm really excited for us to get into this. It really gets you thinking so much deeper about just the universe, worldly topics, just everything, how things potentially work in the universe. So prepare yourself. It's going to be a lot. Before we even get into it, I need to take a sip of my throat-soothing tea. My throat has been a little groggly lately, and in order for book club to thrive, I need to have a decent working throat. So, yeah, let me just take a little sip here. Ooh, that burns. All right. So we are just going to ease ourselves into the Kybalion. We're not going to jump in head first. We're going to just do the introduction here. We're going to introduce ourselves to what we're really getting into. So the first thing that we are going to read is the Foreword. Here we go. In a world full of mystery, the single most compelling riddle that puzzles us is the creation of our universe. Its beginnings have been pondered by humankind for millennia, and it continues to beckon and call, for it is woven into the very fabric of our being. Among those believed to have gained an intimate understanding of our cosmos are the inhabitants of a time referred to as the last Atlantean era. Excuse me. But all we have about this epoch are myths and legends, tales and fables of the lost continent of Atlantis. The story of Atlantis can be traced back to the famous Greek philosopher Plato, who in his Timaeus and Critias dialogues expounds upon the formation and nature of the universe. While historians regard Atlantis as an invention of Plato's mind, Plato himself suggests Atlantis was real. He says its story came to light when Solon, a Greek statesman, traveled to Egypt, seeking to learn more about the antiquity of Greek civilization. It was at an Egyptian temple that Solon met with learned priests, experts in history, who recounted the tale of Atlantis. Let me just say, I'm already butchering pronunciation, just like in Sophie's World. I don't know what it is about these Greek names. I just simply cannot pronounce half of them, so my sincerest apologies. Ancient Egypt, considered by some to be a legacy of the Atlantean era, marked the end of a cycle of human development, a cycle dominated with such a keen awareness of life that archaeologists and historians classified it as one of history's most developed and outstanding civilizations. Its sophistication was profound and undeniable, and would influence cultures for centuries to come. With the deterioration of Egyptian society went their secrets. Insight into their techniques of craftsmanship, science, and methods of awareness became obscured by a wave of ignorance that would ultimately plunge the earth into the abyss of the Dark Ages, a pit from which humankind has since been emerging, for such is the swing of the pendulum. Those ancient Egyptians and Greeks who sought to understand the esoteric realized that all outward manifestations of the universe were under the influence of an ultimate guiding reality, from which elemental forces follow. The moment our universe was born, fundamental laws of nature began guiding and shaping the cosmos, manifesting untold forms and appearances. Established at the beginning of time, these natural laws constantly make their presence known as the universe dances through gyrations of progression and evolution. Whether the universe exists as a point of singularity or an infinite expanse, whether it be a homogeneous soup of subatomic particles or separated into countless developed, individualized entities, the universe rests upon the framework of these universal principles. Although these principles are in constant operation, the masses are unable to recognize or realize their significance and the depth at which they operate. Most are oblivious to the principles, and for those who do manage to notice them, the principles are simply taken for granted and valued lightly, if at all. It is a paradox, for the treasure of these principles is hidden in plain sight. Whether or not one perceives them and appreciates their importance is dependent on the condition of the mind. The beliefs, opinions, and biases that one typically holds create a veil that obscures the principles and prevents a clear point of observation. Recognizing the principles requires one to be open and capable of consideration to drop judgments, at least temporarily, so that one may reach beyond the limiting construct that all too often envelops and imprisons the human mind. But a truly genuine path of honest open-mindedness can be disturbing, abrupt, and downright offensive, and this invariably leads to a road less traveled. Regardless, there will always be a few who attempt to walk the path and broaden their perspective, and it is for this reason that adepts and masters have appeared throughout history to take on the role of teacher and guide, assisting those who have started to turn their attention inward toward the mysteries of creation. Behind this universe and all its appearances, behind infinite universes in all their forms, are the principles. And even further back, behind all of the principles, is the word, the logos, the supreme vibration. It is what the Kybalion describes as the all, from which all emanates. As the all brings forth humankind, members of the race are part of a constant cycle of evolution. Entities evolve from lower levels, ascend and evolve out into higher levels. And in every cycle emerge rare individuals who give themselves to the cause of the all and become a portal for the all, shining bright with the light of wisdom. Like a lighthouse in the fog, they illuminate a path so that others can gain the bearings needed to turn inward and move forward in spiritual progression. These awakened masters impregnate the mental womb of the students and neophytes who will listen, planting a seed of wisdom. But the impregnation does not come from words alone. It comes from their living example of understanding. It comes from the master undressing the disciple's mental clothes, taking all thought away, and quieting the disciple's mind. It comes from the feelings that arise from listening to the master. And of great significance, it comes from instilling a vibration within the disciple, a bonding link to the all, that is brought to the forefront of the disciple's consciousness. It is an initiation of the highest order. The seed is sown, and whether it grows depends upon the principle cultivating a milieu that encourages its development, and dropping arguments that commonly plague the human condition. For millennia, masters have come and gone, appearing in the east, appearing in the west. The Kybalion is dedicated to one such being, Hermes Trismegistus, who dwelt long ago in the land of Egypt. Since then, others have appeared. The all provides for this continuance in every age, with masters appearing even in our modern times. And along with the masters appear the disciples, who are on a search and whose ears and minds are open. Then comes a point when at last they are ready, and through initiation, the master bonds the disciple with the word, Out of that insemination is set the stage for an awakening that unfolds over time, leading to greater and greater depths. But it is not without surrender, for there is mental and physical work involved, and the disciple must embrace the willingness to make the effort and engage in meditative discipline. It is through this work that the disciple falls into harmony with the principles of nature, and gradually the work no longer remains simply work, for the disciple has transmuted the work into play. Read the Kybalion, study it, explore its depths, but don't let your inquiry stop with this book. The story it tells has been passed along for centuries, and the story continues to be passed on, evolving in different ways, all in accordance with the principles. As decades, centuries, and millennia go by, the story will flower in varied forms, cultivated by those who choose to keep the flame alive. Stay alert, be aware, and let consideration be your guide. Avoid the trap of a closed mind, and let yourself become like a child who explores the world with wonder and awe. That is the end of the foreword. Now, I think my favorite takeaway from this is literally forget everything you know. If you think you know everything, throw it out the window. We know nothing. It really is a nice little intro before the actual even introduction to what we're diving into here. Talking about, they mentioned the all, which really is throughout the entire book from what I've noticed. Well, I haven't even read the whole book, but the all is like very important. Really talks about how everything is connected. Everything goes back to what they refer to as the all. There's just this massive, like, universal energy, and this book kind of is going to explore these Hermetic Principles by Hermes, and these principles really try to explain, like, what is happening around us, in a way, why is it happening? But I feel like the why doesn't necessarily matter. It's kind of just like, how is it happening? But also, like it says towards the end there, this is constantly changing. It's going to be modified over time because everything is in a constant state of change. That we have said throughout Sophie's world, constant state of change. So that's a great little foreword. Let's just dive into the introduction for this video. Let's just read the intro. Because, we're on a roll. We are on a roll. Hopefully my throat allows this. Here we go. Let's read the introduction. We take great pleasure in presenting to the attention of students and investigators of the secret doctrines this little work based upon the world-old Hermetic teachings. There has been so little written upon the subject, notwithstanding the countless references to the teachings in the many works upon occultism, that the many earnest searchers after the arcane truths will doubtless welcome the appearance of the present volume. Yeah, let's actually take into consideration here that this knowledge has been, passed down over centuries, and a lot of it wasn't necessarily written. It was spoken, by word to people. But besides that, it's still very, very important for us to listen to what Hermes had to say way back in the day, ancient Greece. So let's get into that. The purpose of this work is not the enunciation of any special philosophy or doctrine, but rather is to give to the students a statement of the truth that will serve to reconcile the many bits of occult knowledge that they may have acquired, but which are apparently opposed to each other, and which often serve to discourage and disgust the beginner in the study. Our intent is not to erect a new temple of knowledge, but rather to place in the hands of a student a master key with which he may open the many inner doors in the temple of mystery through the main portals he has already entered. There's no portion of the occult teachings possessed by the world which have been so closely guarded as the fragments of the Hermetic teachings which have come down to us over the tens of centuries, which have elapsed since the lifetime of its great founder, Hermes Trismegistus, the scribe of the gods. who dwelt in old Egypt in the days when the present race of men was in its infancy, contemporary with Abraham, and, if the legends be true, an instructor of that venerable sage. Hermes was and is the great central sun of occultism, whose rays have served to illuminate the countless teachings which have been promulgated since his time. All the fundamental and basic teachings embedded in the esoteric teachings of every race may be traced back to Hermes. Wow. Even the most ancient teachings of India undoubtedly have their roots in the original Hermetic teachings. So let's pause for a second there. Clearly, Hermes Trismegistus is incredibly important to this knowledge, kind of the founder of occultism, occult knowledge. That is so significant, and that's why I think, this book is very, very powerful. Juan really wanted me to get into this book, read it, and then, have it be on this channel. Because yes, it is so important because he is the founder of occultism. Let's continue. From the land of the Ganges, many advanced occultists wandered to the land of Egypt and sat at the feet of the master. From him they obtained the master key, which explained and reconciled their divergent views, and thus the secret doctrine was firmly established. From other lands also came the learned ones, all of whom regarded Hermes as the master of masters, and his influence was so great that in spite of many wanderings from the path on the part of the centuries of teachers in these different lands, there may still be found a certain basic resemblance and correspondence which underlies the many and often quite divergent theories entertained and taught by the occultists of these different lands today. The student of comparative religions will be able to perceive the influence of the Hermetic teachings in every religion worthy of the name, now known to man, whether it be a dead religion or one in full vigor in our own times. There's always a certain correspondence in spite of the contradictory features, and the Hermetic teachings act as the great reconciler. The life work of Hermes seems to have been in the direction of planting the great seed truth, which has grown and blossomed in so many strange forms, rather than to establish a school of philosophy which would dominate the world's thought. But nevertheless, the original truths taught by him have been kept intact in their original purity by a few men in each age, who, refusing great numbers of half-developed students and followers, followed the Hermetic custom and reserved their truth for the few who were ready to comprehend and master it. From lip to ear, the truth has been handed down among the few. There have always been a few initiates in each generation in the various lands of the earth who kept alive the sacred flame of the Hermetic teachings, and such have always been willing to use their lamps to relight the lesser lamps of the outside world. When the light of truth grew dim and clouded by reason of neglect, and when the wicks became clogged with foreign matter, there were always a few to tend faithfully the altar of the truth, upon which was kept alight the perpetual lamp of wisdom. These men devoted their lives to the labor of love, which the poet has so well stated in his lines. Oh, let not the flame die out, cherished age after age in its dark cavern, in its holy temples cherished, fed by pure ministers of love. Let not the flame die out. These men have never sought popular approval, nor numbers of followers. They are indifferent to these things, for they know how few there are in each generation who are ready for the truth, or who would recognize it if it were presented to them. They reserve the strong meat for men, while others furnish the milk for babes. They reserve their pearls of wisdom for the few elect, who recognize their value, and who wear them in their crowns, instead of casting them before the materialistic vulgar swine, who would trample them in the mud and mix them with their disgusting mental food. But still these men have never forgotten or overlooked the original teachings of Hermes, regarding the passing on of the words of truth to those ready to receive it, which teaching is stated in the Kybalion as follows: Where fall the footsteps of the master, the ears of those ready for his teachings open wide. And again, when the ears of the student are ready to hear, then cometh the lips to fill them with wisdom. but their customary attitude has always been strictly in accordance with the other Hermetic aphorism, also in the Kybalion. The lips of wisdom are closed, except to the ears of understanding. There are those who have criticized this attitude of the Hermetists, and who have claimed that they did not manifest the proper spirit in their policy of seclusion and reticence. But a moment's glance back over the pages of history will show the wisdom of the masters, who knew the folly of attempting to teach to the world that which was neither ready or willing to receive. The Hermetists have never sought to be martyrs, and have, instead, sat silently aside with a pitying smile on their closed lips, while the heathen raged noisily about them, in their customary amusement of putting to death and torture the honest but misguided enthusiasts who imagined that they could force upon a race of barbarians the truth capable of being understood only by the elect who had advanced along the path. And the spirit of persecution has not as yet died out in the land. There are certain Hermetic teachings which, if publicly promulgated, would bring down upon the teachers a great cry of scorn and revilement from the multitude, who would again raise the cry of "Crucify, crucify." In this little work, we have endeavored to give you an idea of the fundamental teachings of the Kybalion, striving to give you the working principles, leaving you to apply them yourselves, rather than attempting to work out the teaching in detail. If you are a true student, you will be able to work out and apply these principles. If not, then you must develop yourself into one, for otherwise the Hermetic teachings will be as words to you, the three initiates. That is the end of the introduction to the Kybalion. I really appreciate that they say, this is basically, you're just a student, essentially. You are a student trying to learn these things, and it's not going to be easy, probably. It's not going to be perfect. You are going to be a continual student until the day you die, and probably even after you die. I feel like we're just constantly learning all the time. And I also really appreciate that throughout the ages, these master teachers and students, they try their best not to judge. They know that most people aren't ready for this knowledge. They're well aware that, I'd say 90% maybe, are not ready at all. They don't want to even think about what's in this book or anything about it. And so that because they realize this, they're not going to force it necessarily onto people. They know, you know what? You all are barbarians. And there's no point in trying to preach to the masses if the masses aren't going to listen. So essentially, they say, this book will find you. This knowledge will find you. You will find it when you are ready to receive it and use it. And that is the best way to introduce something to people. It's you can have this knowledge and use it if you're ready. If you're not, totally fine. You can come back. If you're never ready, also totally fine. There's no, it's not strict. It's not well, you need to know this, and if you don't know this, then you're just an idiot and you'll never learn anything. It's no, you'll come to it when you're ready, and that I love. I love that so much. I think this was a great introduction into what we're getting ourselves into. Lots of deep teachings about the principles of basically the entire universe. So the chapter 1, we'll get into Hermetic philosophy next video. So please stay tuned for that. Very excited to have discussions about this. So please let me know in the comments. Let me know your thoughts about the Kybalion and everything. Literally just anything. Put something down in the comments. Please subscribe if you're not already. Like the video. And stay tuned. We're getting into some deep shit. Prepare yourselves. Buckle your seatbelt. Here we go. Anyways, I hope you have a great day. Thank you for joining.